We all know that Africa is a diverse and colorful continent where nature, history, and people create a unique harmony. In this episode, get ready to learn about incredible geological formations, natural phenomena and sites, historical monuments, fascinating traditions, and customs. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to not miss our next episodes. In the city of Kinshasa, the capital of the Congo, huge metal traffic control robots have appeared on the streets. Visually, they resemble robots from popular films of the last century, but they easily cope with the main functions. They are equipped with basic lights, as on a regular traffic light, and movable hands that mimic the gestures of traffic controllers. In addition, each robot has 4 surveillance cameras. It is assumed that robots will record violations on video and send data to the police. The Orlando Towers in Soweto, South Africa, are one of the most famous and visually impressive landmarks in the region. They were built in 1951 as part of a power plant, which was closed in 1998. Since then, the towers have remained abandoned until they began to be used as a facility for extreme sports, bungee jumping, rope jumping, as well as tourism. This amazing phenomenon cannot be seen from the surface of the Earth, but astronauts can see it in all its glory. We are talking about a structure with a diameter of 50 kilometers located in Mauritania among the sands of the Sahara, called the Richet or Eye of the Sahara. The structure itself is an elliptical dome of sedimentary rocks which differ in strength and resistance to erosion and weathering. As a result, more durable quartzites formed protruding ring ridges, while softer rocks were made of clay shales and sandstones. The Dead Valley is one of the main natural attractions in the Namibian National Park. Surrounded by the dunes of Sosavlei, the clay depression is located at the bottom of a dried-up lake and is famous for fossilized acacias. Under the influence of the hot and extremely dry climate, the trees did not rot but were mummified. Now the earth, covered with a layer of salt and clay, from which the roots of trees stick out as if frozen by gusts of wind, is part of the surrounding lifeless landscape. In most countries, temples rise majestically above the ground, but not in Ethiopia, one of the oldest Christian countries in the world. In the city of Lalibela, there are 11 temples carved into the rocks. You can see them only if you climb the rocks and reach these carved holes going into their depths. It is still a mystery how these unique underground temples were created. Ancient legends say that a vision with such churches descended into the dream of King Lalibela, who ruled the country in the 12th century. There is a place in our world where men and women literally speak different languages. This is Ubang Village, a farming community in southern Nigeria. They consider this unique difference to be God's blessing and understand each other well. Being raised by mothers, boys know and speak the female language in childhood, and from the age of 10, they switch to the male language. Therefore, no one has problems with mutual understanding. Ubangs are proud of their linguistic diversity and consider it a sign of their uniqueness. The underwater waterfalls of Mauritius attracted many tourists and lovers of exotic natural phenomena. This is despite the fact that they are an optical illusion created by nature. According to numerous studies by geologists, the main reason for its appearance is a peculiar relief formed by coral reefs, sand, and silt deposits. In addition, strong currents are observed in this area. They constantly move the mass along the ocean floor and create intricate vortices, jets, and cascades from it. The Skeleton Coast in Namibia is an amazing place on the southwestern coast of the country, known for its snow-white sand dunes stretching along the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. This place got its frightening name mainly because of the numerous shipwrecks off the local shores which claimed the lives of many navigators. Ships were repeatedly wrecked here, whose rusted fragments remained on the shore. Of course, baobabs are one of the most recognizable and amazing symbols of Africa. In Tanzania, for example, you can see many of the oldest trees, which amaze with their gigantic sizes and shapes. The Alley of Baobabs on the island of Zanzibar is a popular attraction. Locals consider them sacred trees that have healing properties and can bring good luck. Baobabs were also used to treat various diseases and as a source of food and water for travelers. The main natural attraction of the island of Mauritius is the caramel seven-colored earth. Scientists are still arguing about the origin of this phenomenon. Many of them explain this phenomenon by the fact that Mauritius is of volcanic origin. The lava that once came out of the bowels formed a basalt, which, as a result of the tropical climate and humid conditions, turned into clay soil, the decomposition of which led to the formation of iron and aluminum oxides. Iron oxide colored the sands in shades from red to brown, and aluminum oxide from blue to purple. Two Nobel Peace Prize winners, Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, lived on Vlakazi Street in Orlando West in Soweto, South Africa. In the 50s, mass protests against racial discrimination took place here, and today there are many restaurants, bars, and shops, as well as the Nelson Mandela Museum and the house where the writer Masekela lived and worked. Thus, Vlakazi Street has become a popular tourist destination and a symbol of the struggle for freedom and equality in South Africa. The Singi de Baha Nature Reserve is located on the west coast of Madagascar and is famous for its amazing stone forest. This unique landscape consists of sharp spires up to 50 meters high, formed during the erosion of softer limestone rocks. It is worth noting that trees grow below, where sunlight penetrates, giving shelter to birds and small animals. And this is the habitat of unique white lemurs. Erta is considered the most active volcano in Ethiopia. It is located in the Afar Desert region in northern Ethiopia and has two lava lakes. One of them, which is still dangerous today, reaches a width of about 30 to 40 meters. Even in relatively calm periods, the top of Erta simply smokes continuously, for which the Ethiopians nicknamed it the Smoking Mountain. According to research, there is a giant accumulation of magma under the volcano, which feeds the lakes. Scientists explained the increased activation of the volcano by serious tectonic processes under the African continent. The lifeless landscapes of Lake Natron in northern Tanzania resemble surreal alien planets. The composition of the water that feeds it includes soda carbonate and a high concentration of salt, so the lake itself is crusted and periodically turns red and pink. If animals or birds accidentally fall into the water, they die and are immediately mummified. The exception is small flamingos. They enjoy the perfect breeding conditions here. The African continent is rich in a variety of wildlife. The giant burrowing frog is one of its brightest representatives. These frogs spend almost their entire lives in the water and are nocturnal. During periods of drought, they burrow into the silt and hibernate. At the same time, they pre-store half a liter of water in their bladder. This helps burrowing frogs hide from predators and survive in any conditions. Bontu knots are a traditional hairstyle of women of many African tribes. Their history is connected with the history of the militant Zulus who used such a style in their daily life. This hairstyle is created by twisting strands until tight knots are formed. Today, it is popular not only among Africans, but also all over the world. The Lothagam North Pillar Site is an archaeological complex in Kenya which consists of a huge number of pillars. This complex was discovered in 2007 and is considered one of the most important archaeological finds in East Africa. The pillars have various shapes and sizes, elaborately carved and decorated with geometric patterns. Researchers believe that they were created by ancient communities to mark the territory or for religious purposes. Agriculture is the main sector of the Ethiopian economy. Judging by the research and findings of scientists, this has been the case since time immemorial. 10,000 years ago, people here began to make the first attempts at plant cultivation. They switched to systematic farming, growing cereals, wheat, barley, and legumes. At the same time, some animals such as cattle, sheep, and goats began to be domesticated. This was of great importance for providing a stable source of food and other resources. In the north of Ethiopia, the Danakil Depression is located at a depth of 125 meters below sea level and has become famous for its amazing and incredibly colorful landscapes. The surface in this area is covered with pools of caustic acid and sulfur springs with acid steam over them. That's why this depression is also known as the Gates of Hell. This region is home to many active volcanoes, an incredibly salty lake, and a colorful landscape. The East African Rift, which formed the Rift Valley, stretches for 3,000 kilometers and divides the African plate into two unequal parts, the Somali and Nubian plates, which move away from each other at a rate of 6 to 7 millimeters per year. At the bottom of the fault, seismic activity is constantly manifested by strong earthquakes. There are also hot springs, geysers, and extinct volcanoes. The researchers note that every year the fault gets bigger and eventually it will lead to a complete rupture of the continent. Lake Retba is an amazing natural phenomenon with a really rich pink color. It is this feature that has made it one of the main attractions of Senegal. About 1,000 people work in the lake every day. They collect approximately 24,000 tons of salt per year, which is a source of income for the local population. Such a high salt content level created perfect conditions in the water for microorganisms and bacteria that color the water in such an unusual shade. Greater Zimbabwe is the name of a complex of stone structures covering an area of 24 hectares and located in the mountains of southeastern Zimbabwe. According to research, the city was founded in the 9th century AD, and even then it was inhabited by up to 18,000 people and flourished until the 17th century. The most impressive is the eastern part of the complex. One can also witness an example of dry masonry construction in the form of the conical 9-meter tower. 7 stone Berg figurines were discovered on the territory of the complex, which have now become the national emblem of Zimbabwe. Greater Zimbabwe is the only ancient group of stone structures south of the Sahara. These days, huge and voluminous buttocks are at the peak of popularity among women. To have them, they go to gyms and even do plastic surgery by inserting implants into the buttocks. Meanwhile, some women of African descent have more developed gluteal muscles than Europeans and other ethnicities. Some people say that this is due to the peculiarity of the climate, high temperature, and lack of food. The stored supply of nutrients under the skin can help to raise children during the hunger period, as well as avoid overheating of the body. Millions of round, lifeless patches in the Namib Desert make the landscape look like the lunar surface. These so-called fairy circles or magic circles of Namibia have long puzzled researchers. Their diameter reaches from 2 to 15 meters, and they are nothing but soil surrounded by a ring of grass. Previously, it was believed that sand termites were responsible for the appearance of such circles. Modern research suggests that grass organizes itself in this way in order to have access to water in drought conditions. When people think of African countries, they share not only popular stereotypes such as low levels of education, technological progress, and economic development, but also many prejudices against the people living on the continent. Some people are still convinced of the significant differences in physiology between Africans, Europeans, and Asians. However, they are mostly baseless. Everyone knows about the famous tomb of Tutankhamun, but the tomb of Susenes I, discovered in Tanis in the Nile Delta, also deserves attention. The most outstanding find made there was a magnificent sarcophagus made of pure silver. Thanks to this, Susenes got his name. He was called the Silver Pharaoh. The nobility and wealth of the buried are highlighted by gold rings and bracelets on his hands, caps on his toes, and even sandals made of pure gold. In addition to the sarcophagus itself, other artifacts, dishes, several staffs, and swords were found. Even though Africa is more associated with the desert, in fact, the continent has a huge area of rainforests, mountains, and savannas. In the northern part of South Africa, many petroglyphic drawings and even some sculptures dating from 900 to 1300 AD have been found in the mountains. Most scientists suggest that they may be of a religious nature related to beliefs in the spirit world. Tadrart Arkarkis is a mountain range in the Saharan desert in Libya. It is interesting because the rock massif has thousands of cave paintings of various styles dating back to the period from 12,000 years BC to 100 AD. People can be seen in the images as well as giraffes, elephants, ostriches, camels, and horses. People are depicted in a variety of everyday situations, for example, playing musical instruments and dancing. Unfortunately, some people were unable to appreciate this historical heritage, and some of the drawings were damaged by vandals.